Glazeguard PLUS is a heavy-duty anti-slip coating that's been developed specifically to seal hard surfaces, slippery surfaces when wet. It'll bond to a variety of substrates: metal, concrete, ceramic, and porcelain. Because it has adhesion promoters, it allows us to bond to these very dense surfaces. It's also flexible, so we can bond to vinyl and rubber flooring as well. The coating itself has adhesion promoters in there. That's what allows us to bond to these very dense surfaces. But we also include a very fine, transparent additive that gives us a very high traction, very high slip resistant flooring. And these additives are so fine that while you don't really see them, they don't really change the appearance of the floor or the floor surface. They increase the slip resistance of the floor significantly. The product is UV resistant, so it can be used internally, interior applications, exterior applications. And it's been tested independently for what we call dynamic wet coefficient, the wet dynamic coefficient of friction. This represents a foot or someone walking, somebody in motion versus somebody standing still, which is more representative of the situation when someone slips. And that test is the latest test and anti-slip testing, and we score very high. The requirement is 0.4 or above for a wet condition, and we score 0.6 or higher with the Glazeguard PLUS. The situations where you would use a product like Glazeguard PLUS is firstly if you're doing some kind of remodeling or repairing of your floor or your tile of that surface, and then you want to put a coating over it to seal it off, maybe to enhance the finish, but you want to make sure that that surface or that coating is slip resistant. Glazeguard PLUS allows you to do that because it bonds to so many different types of substrates, whether they're hard surfaces or soft surfaces like rubber or vinyl. It's going to be used in high traffic areas where maybe there's an industrial application, where there's chemicals, where you need chemical resistance as well as slip resistance. It's going to be used in areas where there's maybe a lot of water and cleaning chemicals, like around a swimming pool, or in the areas where the equipment for the swimming pool is stored. So any kind of surface where you might anticipate chemicals being used or a lot of water, the Glazeguard PLUS definitely has an application. And I think the third area is if you're trying to use a clear sealer on a surface and you don't really want to change that surface look significantly, or you want to make it keep that cleanability. You want to make sure that it's slip resistant but easier to clean. So the Glazeguard PLUS is going to leave a very tough, durable, long-lasting seal on the surface that's treated that has very high traction. Because we use ultrafine additive, it's also going to be easier to keep clean than many of the other solutions out there. You're going to have a sealer that's on the floor that will enhance the floor. It can increase the sheen, it can increase the durability, and if you want it in a solid color, we now have that option too, in a range of standard solid colors. It's going to give you something that can be used outside as well as inside. It's not going to yellow, it's not going to change its appearance, and it's going to provide an anti-slip solution for many years. It has good chemical resistance, so if you're in a situation where you're using aggressive cleaning chemicals, or you're in an industrial situation, maybe there's de-icing salts outside a facility or inside the entranceway of a facility, you now have a very tough sealer that will hold up to those chemicals and maintain a slip-resistant surface for many years. One of the common anti-slip solutions out there is to use an epoxy coating with a sand or an aggregate mixed in. Epoxies are tough sealers, but they do have limitations. They're not UV resistant, they don't weather very well outside, and they will yellow. So right there, epoxies should be used inside the facility, not outside. Secondly, in order to get good adhesion or long-term adhesion, you have to do a lot of surface prep, either sandblasting or abrading the surface. The other disadvantage, I think, of the epoxies is really the aggregate that's in there is pretty large in order to get a good slip resistant. That makes it tough to keep clean. It tends to trap dirt. It obviously changes the appearance and the feel of the floor. So, you know, although it comes in different colors, it doesn't work that well as a clear sealer because of the fact that it will yellow over time. So things like natural stone, ceramic and porcelain, not really a good solution if you want to go down the epoxy road. The Glaze Guard PLUS, you know, bonds very well to ceramic. It's a clear sealer. It has that ultrafine additive, so we're not changing the look of those surfaces. And it can be used outside as well as inside. Moving on now to acrylic. That's another type of coating that's used. Again, an acrylic mixed in with an aggregate. Acrylics are not really as hard wearing as the Glaze Guard PLUS. They will tend to wear off faster. They don't have the same water or chemical resistance. And you're back to using these large aggregates that are more likely to trap dirt and be harder to maintain. Acrylics can be used outside. They do have UV resistance, but their wear resistance and their weathering and water resistance is not as good as the Glaze Guard PLUS. Another solution out there is a surface treatment. It's either an etching or modifying the surface of the tile or the floor using a low pH acidic type solution. These can work well if you have a time constraint and you need to do the treatment quickly. But they don't work on all types of surfaces. They're really limited to mineral type surfaces, tile, concrete, and natural stone. But you have to be careful with low pH treatments on natural stone. You can damage or significantly alter the appearance of a natural stone if you use low pH or acidic solutions. The Glaze Guard PLUS won't affect the surface in terms of detrimental. It doesn't etch it, it doesn't damage the surface, and it can be used on non-mineral as well as mineral surfaces. So we can use the Glaze Guard PLUS on wood, for example. We can use it on metal, and we can use it on natural stone, ceramic, porcelain. It can be used on a multitude of surfaces, whereas the surface treatments, these low pHs, are limited really to mineral surfaces. The other thing is the mineral or the acidic type solutions only address a slippery surface when it's wet. We quite often see situations when a floor is slippery when it's dry. It may have a high shine on it. It may be slippery when you have socks on. And again, these etching solutions don't address those types of floors, whereas the Glaze Guard PLUS will provide high traction on those surfaces, wet or dry. Another solution is actually to use a cleaner type process or a friction cleaner. These are mopped on or buffed onto the surface, but they're typically temporary solutions. They only last a few weeks or a few months, and they need to be reapplied. They can have an odor associated with them, so that you have to be careful where you use them. You can't use it in a confined space. Maybe a lot of issues inside a facility, maybe like a hospital or a nursing home. You wouldn't want to use those products that are going to give off a very high odor, high solvent smell, essentially. The Glaze Guard Plus is water-based, virtually zero odor. We can use it inside a property, we can use it in a confined space, and you don't have those issues. And it's also a long-term solution. It's not months or weeks, it's years, typically 3 to 5 years before needing a reapplication. Glaze Guard Plus has many advantages over other anti-slip solutions, other competitive solutions. I guess in 4 areas I would address. First of all, it's UV resistant and non-yellowing, so it can be used inside or outside the property, interior or exterior, around swimming pools, outside entrances. Those types of applications work very well. So it has good UV resistance, non-yellowing. Second is that it's sheen, right? You can provide a sheen to a tile or to a floor. Yeah, we can enhance the slip resistance and improve the look of the floor. This fits in well with a lot of remodeling situations or repair, where you're repairing a bad tile or a bad floor, and after you've repaired it, you want to coat it. You want to maybe add some sheen to it, but you want to make sure it's not slippery. The Glaze Guard provides that solution versus some kind of surface treatment which just etches the surface. There's no enhancement. The third area is in terms of its durability. Glaze Guard is a very tough sealer. It has adhesion promoters that allow us to bond long term to these very dense surfaces. Ceramic, porcelain, metal. Right? It bonds to those surfaces tenaciously for many years. And then the last area is its cleanability. You know, we're using these ultra-fine additives into the Glaze Guard Plus that are transparent, so you don't notice that they're in there, but you can feel them. And it makes it, it doesn't change the appearance of the floor, or very little change in appearance, and then, but keeps it easier to clean. A lot of the competitive products out there will use an aggregate that is traps the dirt and makes it much harder to maintain the floor and to clean it. Yeah, so the Glaze Guard Plus has many advantages over anti-slip solutions, other anti-slip solutions out there. I think the key ones are, first of all, its adhesion. It bonds to a tremendous number of surfaces, a variety of surfaces, hard surfaces, soft surfaces like rubber and vinyl. Very dense surfaces like metal or ceramic or porcelain, it'll bond to those. So adhesion's the first thing. Secondly, UV resistant. It's non-yellowing. You can use it interior as well as exterior. Epoxies, for example, will yellow if you use them outside. They'll weather. The Glaze Guard Plus has very good UV resistance. It can be used outside in the weather, around swimming pools, and it won't yellow. The third thing is the fact that you can enhance the surface. This provides us with a solution that will increase the gloss, increase the sheen, bring out the colors of the floor, as well as provide an anti-slip solution. Compare that to something like etches the floor. That doesn't really bring out the colors, it doesn't really bring out the sheen. It's only provides a slip resistant solution, whereas the Glaze Guard does more than that. And then thirdly, lastly I would say, key advantage is the cleanability. Because we're using these very fine, ultra-fine additives, we can provide a slip-resistant solution that's still easy to clean. Compare that to like an epoxy or an acrylic that has an aggregate in there. These aggregates are typically very large and trap the dirt and make it much harder to clean. The Glazeguard PLUS, you can feel the aggregate in there, but you can't see it. And because it's so fine, it means that we can go over it with a mop, or we can soft brush and really maintain the slip resistance while also having a good cleanable surface.